have you now?
You're fulfilling your destiny.
Show me again the power of the darkness.
D20 Radio, where gamers roll. D20radio.com. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, blue, yellow, and or red players, to the Knights of Ren, episode 111. Thank you so much for joining us this week. Our hosts are Rick and Jay. Thank you for joining us, gentlemen.
Hey, how's it going?
What's up? Not much. All right, so this week, Destiny finally came out in our friendly local game stores, hobby shops, all around the world, and we had a really great time. We got to get some sealed events under our belt, some constructed events, and this week, we're just going to talk about all the great stuff that we saw, played against, experienced. So, leading off with that, Jay, you had a sealed event at your local game store. Why don't you give us the rundown on how that happened?
Yeah, so we had our first major event at our game store here in Berkeley at Eudaimonia. We decided to do a modified sealed event. We had 8 competitors. Each player got a starter deck and 5 boosters, and to try and create, probably not would ever become like the main way sealed is going to end up being, but just sort of as an experiment, we tried out ignoring hero and villain rules just to sort of let everyone play like basically whatever they opened. They still had to follow color restrictions. I wouldn't actually call this rule set a success. Some players still managed to not open any characters, and so some people managed to roll multiple characters, which, you know, boosted their health out and just made it much harder for those that didn't have as much dice and didn't have the luck with good upgrades. Just were not really able to chew through some of the competitors. Also, the starter decks are good, as we've said, for teaching, but to build from, it was, I'll say this, a lot of games went to time. First round, we tried 45 minutes, and then I actually gave it a 15-minute extension, and we still had 2 games did not finish. It's tough, like, building straight from starters. I don't think we'd do something like this again, but the players had fun. People opened some cool stuff, like the more interesting lists that people were able to put together. Like there was a Phasma Kylo Trooper deck that did really well, and there was a hired gun Rebel Trooper, I think Ray. Yeah, he had all 3 colors, so you could play whatever he opened, and he did fairly well as well. But yeah, overall, it was a fun event. You know, people enjoyed it. Again, people enjoyed trying it and weren't upset even when, like, it didn't quite work out in everyone's favor. Everyone had a really good time, so again, probably won't be an event we try again, but at least not without different rules. But it was kind of funny to see, like, you know, with not following the hero villain stuff. You know, there was a Rey with Kylo's lightsaber. That was pretty cool and pretty good. Oh, and yeah, just some other like little funny things. I'm pretty sure someone got force choked and was playing a Rey deck as well. It was pretty cool.
So Rey turned into the dark side and swinging Kylo sabers and force choking.
Yeah. The split was 6 Rey, 2 Kylos.
Nice.
Oh wow! So tell us a little bit about the games that went to time. I'm curious, like, was it because of the way the decks were constructed? Was it because the players were newer, or just were they both slow roll decks? Like, can you elaborate on that?
Sure. I mean, yeah, a lot of the people that came to compete, like this, they haven't played as much as most people, you know. They came just to, you know, try out a fun event and a fun new game, and so I don't want to call it slow play, but, you know, new player play and like rules questions and just trying to think through their turns really well. And, you know, there actually are a pretty decent amount of control options in both of the starters, so, you know, sometimes you can just get that really good block and then your whole turn kind of just didn't happen. And so, yeah, it was just a combination of like people unfamiliar. People don't even know like what their decks do. You know, like it was a combination of a lot of things, and it was a lot of new faces and new people like getting used to the game. And everyone was really friendly and understanding. And we'll get to it later, but like in comparison to our constructed event that we held today, the sealed event was yesterday, but the constructed event, most rounds went 40 minutes, but 35-40, but we're like pretty much closed out by then.
Yeah, so it was more of the time was more of a combination of things like new players and not very tuned decks, that sort of thing, even without the hero and villain restriction.
Yeah, definitely. Because I mean, you know, some people just didn't necessarily open, you know, super powerful rare cards to really like go in their deck. Or one guy unfortunately opened a bunch of yellow, but he was playing the Kylo deck, and so he just couldn't play like half of what he opened. So he pretty much played the straight Kylo deck and had a rough time.
Yeah. So
Poor guy.
They picked their starter and bought their packs all at the same time instead of opening the packs then picking the starter to kind of match it.
Yeah, a lot of people came in like knowing what they wanted, and that just turned sour for him, and things were already underway. But again, he had a good attitude about it. He actually donated his starter to another player, which was pretty cool.
That's nice.
So.
Yeah.
It also sounds like the people that did well from what you mentioned were people that were still kind of matching the hero and villain restriction, right? At least by character, right?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember if there was a cross, because I was hoping for that, but God, I'm trying to remember what Chase played, the guy who won. I was mostly trying to pay attention to the other tables and keep things running and make sure people were playing right and so forth. But God,
You know,
what
doing
did
your
Chase
job.
do? Yeah, I feel like there was a Poe, but I could be wrong. I don't know. Chase played really well. Whatever he had in front of him. I know he had a Ray starter. I want to say he went Ray Poe, but I know he'd be like, I didn't have a Poe. I'm like, all right, cool. So, regardless, Chase won and he kicked butt, so congrats to him.
So all in all, it was fun and people enjoyed it. Not something that you think would be or good to run again that same way, but maybe once FFG comes out with either sealed or a draft, it'd still be pretty interesting, right?
Yeah, I mean, the thing we want to try next, you know, unless like we get the official limited rules soon, but again, this would put some pressure on the players to already have this stuff, but we're thinking about trying an event where every player brings one of each non-unique character, and that's your base, and then you buy packs and flesh that out.
Oh,
So, but that still take a lot of packs. So I don't know. We're messing with ideas, but that could be fun.
Yeah, I'd probably be able to help it out on the people that don't open starters or open characters. At least have something to add to maybe one character that they open.
Yeah, definitely.
So I have a couple questions for the sealed event. Were there any standout cards? You know, we've talked a lot about this and that, but, you know, you actually saw it in play with, you know, boosters and starters in the wild. Were there, you know, certain combinations that people just really gravitated towards, or certain cards that you noticed were maybe a little bit more powerful or worse than what we've talked about?
I mean, Force Throw dominated pretty hard. It's probably predominantly the reason to go Ray starter, aside from just how good just slapping upgrades on her is already. But Force Throw just being like a defensive and offensive tool is always going to be extremely solid. Aside from that, I mean, again, I was more watching, like, just making sure things are going smoothly and, you know, answering questions and stuff, and I didn't quite pay as much attention to what people had, because again, it was mostly just starters and a little bit extra. But you know, people had cool stuff like, oh yeah, that's right, a Kylo player had Black 1, and that was pretty cool. I was like, there was another cross hero villain thing that was neat. Yeah, it was Black 1. That was neat.
And just to cover Force Throw, it is a blue upgrade ability, and it's neutral. It costs you 3 resources, and its die faces are 1 range damage, 1 disrupt, 2 disrupt, special, and a blank. And the special effect is Remove a die to deal character damage equal to the value showing on that die. Specials and blanks are counted as 0.
Yeah, I can see that dominating with the limited card pool. You know, being able to not only get rid of something that's threatening, but also turning that damage onto your opponent. It's really good and constructed too. But
I mean, in a limited environment, it's very cost effective. But it's not only removal, but it's damage, which there's not much of that in either starter.
Right. Plus, there's other, like, you're generally building your deck to be able to deal with your opponent's dice as well. So even if they do roll that special, there's plenty of ways in all of the colors that you could run to be able to handle that force throw die. So it's much stronger in a limited environment.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I agree.
Still good and constructed, but much stronger when people can't really work around it too well.
Right.
All in all, great event. Thanks everyone for showing up. A lot of people said, a lot of them that were there said they were more interested in, a limited style event than constructed. So we're trying to figure out how to accommodate that unless, FFG releases their ideas soon. But if not, hopefully we can come up with something.
You should cube draft.
So, yeah, who knows?
Just open like a bunch of boxes, do a cube, like a Winchester.
Yeah, it only cost you about $400 and being able to find all those cards together. But yeah, no,
not a big deal. No big deal. All right, so we've moved on to today's events, which both Rick and Jay, I think you said, were constructed. Is that correct?
Correct. So
yes.
My constructed event today was at the Island Games in Centerville, Virginia. I think we had 8 people show up. I was playing in it. I wasn't TOing it, and there actually wasn't much need for a TO for this one. Everybody seemed to have a pretty good grasp of rules. Like, nobody was, yelling for a judge or anything like that to come answer any questions. Pretty much everything was handled at the table. Having the updated rule set really helped out coming out this week too, so people obviously had read up on that and built their decks accordingly. I played a mono blue deck that was Rey, Qui-Gon, and Padawan all at one dice. So I mean, I had all the shield stuff like force protection, defensive stance, riposte, stuff like that, with lightsabers, both regular and Luke's, and all the standard mono blue stuff, with also bind all things. It binds all things, which reduces the cost of blue upgrades, and also was running willpower and heroism to kind of spread that damage around. So those 3 characters together add up to 28 health, plus all the shields that you're getting from not only Qui-Gon, but the force protections and the incidental shields that you're getting in there. Really had a lot of health that my opponents had to burn through, which turned out really well for me because there was a lot of aggro in that room. So first round, of course, got paired up with a friend of mine, Mike, that he actually loaned me the extra lightsaber because starters are impossible to find in Northern Virginia right now, and also the Luke's lightsaber. But he was playing a Kylo 2 trooper list that was more pushed towards damage than anything else. One of the things that he kind of talked about after was just the sheer cost of all of that damage die. He just wasn't able to put enough resources on the table to build his board state and be able to do the damage, which we kind of got that from just the basic Kylo starter as well, so that one wasn't too difficult. He was able to kill a Padawan pretty quickly, but after that I had just too much stuff on Rey and Qui-Gon for him to chunk through everything. At the end of the game, I think Qui-Gon had full shields, Rey had full shields, and that's after running 2 riposte. So it just kind of snowballed once everything started getting out. It's the deck itself that I was playing has a ridiculous amount of health, but also all those shields adding on top of it, and the damage output is actually pretty high for what you would think on there. Padawan is just really good with Rey on being able to provide the melee sides that she needs for her modified sides and stuff. So after that game, round 2, I played against another gentleman. He was running Elite Veers and Elite Django, and that deck can put some range damage on the table really quickly. I mean, if I didn't get all the shields that I was getting coming off of my deck, it would have been over really quickly. But early Deflects, the one cost event that removes a die showing ranged and deal half that damage to an opposing character, really helped out there. Not to mention, I think during that game I had 2 force protections out and data pads, allowing me to have another chance at getting force protection to go off. In that game, we had a pretty good turn with data pad sitting on a special, force protection sitting on a special, and Luke's lightsaber sitting on a blank. Resolve specials, turn the data pad, or use the data pad special ability, which lets me put another die on a face not showing damage. So I put the Luke's lightsaber on its special, then immediately resolve that special to deal 2 unblockable damage, then immediately resolve force protection to shield up everybody and do damage with Qui-Gon. I think with that I was able to kill Django, who had Qui-Gon's die on prized possession. So that turned the tables on that one pretty quick. One of the best things about that one was the force misdirection out of blue. It's a 1-cost event that you pick a side showing on one of your blue die and get rid of all of opponent's die showing that same face. So with the force trainings and force throws giving you the extra ranged side on there, I think probably saved me 7 damage one turn. So that was really good. It basically came down to Veers against Rey and the Padawan after he finally got rid of Qui-Gon, and it was one big power of the Force doing counting up your blue upgrades and making a die that value off of a ranged, and then plus 4 more damage off to clear through Veers. So that was fun. Then the final round, I played against Chris. He was playing Balatik at 1 die, 2 Stormtroopers, and a Night Sister. And that one was really, after talking with him afterwards, he was only playing the Night Sister because he didn't have a third trooper. So he had no blue in the deck at all. It was just, I needed another body, and Night Sister fit in, so I'm going to run Night Sister. And for whatever reason, everybody was always going after his Night Sister first. So, I mean, I did the same thing, right? And I was apparently the only one that he played against that was able to get through the Night Sister and then continue through the conga line of characters that he had. It ended up being Balatik versus a Padawan, and he was just able to get enough damage out on Balatik that he had just enough with the red supporting fire that resolve a ranged die to deal 1 more damage. So
I like that card a lot.
Yeah, that one definitely won him the game. It killed Qui-Gon too because I saw it sitting back there, but I didn't think about it in my combat math. Rolled out Qui-Gon instead of putting some shields on him first, and then he just was able to get what he needed on it because I knew that I had enough shields to live through the 1 range that he had showing. So I was being greedy, trying to get some dice out there to be able to force misdirection off of the force training that Qui-Gon had on him. But that one was just going to time. All of my games went to time just because of the sheer amount of damage that I had to put in front of my opponent. So I ended up going 2-1. It was a fun tournament. Again, everybody enjoyed themselves, whether they were winning and losing. 1-2 packs that we'll get here at some point when the Northern Virginia drought is over with on the Destiny product. But I mean, that's a good thing, really. seeing everybody being so excited for this game, and just buying up and driving to all the stores around here, looking for product and getting everything that they can get. So they're going to be doing tournaments probably every Sunday for the foreseeable future for Destiny, which is exciting that we have some organized play already starting out. And we had 8 people show up for the first event, and it was a good time.
Okay, very cool. Now I'm gonna ask both of you guys these questions just because your experiences will be different. But what were your favorite cards that you saw? Let's talk about your deck first, and then I'll have some other questions about your opponent's decks. But like, what cards in your deck just really shone? Like you thought they would perform well, but they just really did much better than anticipated.
So I really wanted to try out Force Misdirection. Because I had a feeling that at least one, if not more, would be playing some version of Elite Vader, either Vader Raider or Vader Sister or Vader Trooper, one of the others, right? That is just going to be pushing the melee damage so hard. So the benefit of blue in that situation with Force Misdirection is that there's so many melee sides on Qui-Gon, Rey, and Padawan that I will almost always be able to get one of those dice out first, and then when they finally roll Vader with lightsabers and Kylo sabers and whatnot, that I'll be able to just clear the board with their melee damage and still have my melee damage on the table. And it's one cheaper than block, plus it provides you a little bit more consistency in that with the random range damage sides on some of the other upgrades in blue, you can use it as both a block and a dodge at one cost. So that one, I didn't actually play against any melee focused deck. So I was really working to be able to get the range damage to be able to use it as a dodge, but it saved me over the course of the tournament probably somewhere around 10 to 12 damage.
And that will also proc off of modified sides, correct?
Correct. Any side on a blue, any symbol on a blue die that you have, you can use it. So you could use it as ranged, as melee damage to get rid of that if you show them. You can even use them as resources. You can even use them as blanks. So, like, if they roll a bunch of blanks and you happen to have a blank out there, you could use it as a... actually, I don't know for sure on that, but I think that they consider blank a side in that, and then you can use it as almost like the 2-cost card that has you re-roll any number of die and then get rid of all the blanks. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I really like Force Misdirection. I can't wait for a couple more range sides on blue upgrades for light side for that. Another one that was just, I kind of threw it in to see how it would work, was Willpower. The one that's a 1-cost blue event for heroes that you move a 1 damage from an exhausted character you control to an exhausted character your opponent controls, and it ignores shields. Mm-hmm. So I'm really using that as a 2-point swing to my in my favor. I was able to use it, but it probably could be something else in there. And then finally, the last one that really worked in my deck for me was It Binds All Things, reducing the cost of your blue upgrades by 1. So being able to play a Luke's lightsaber on a Padawan for 1 resource is about as good as it gets, I think. So that, I mean, there was times when I'd get that on the first turn and draw all these upgrades and probably save me 7 resources over the course of a game.
Okay. I do have a clarification on Force Misdirection. So the card states, choose a symbol showing on one of your blue dice, then remove all of an opponent's dice showing that symbol. And then if you read in the rules reference on page 9, there's a entire page about dice symbols, and blank is considered a symbol.
Well, there you go. So it'll work on the blanks.
There's no reason why you couldn't just chew through a bunch of blanks if you had one showing, which that's really good.
Yeah. Some of the things that my opponents played against me, Chris with that last game, he played the red event. I'm blanking on the name of it right now. Sweep the Area, that count the number of ready red characters you control and re-roll that many of your opponent's dice. It saved him a butt ton of damage. For whatever reason, he would have me re-roll stuff and it would go to blanks or resources or modified sides and stuff. So that worked out pretty well for him. And of course, supporting fire probably won him that game. So those were both very good out of that deck. You can check out that deck list that he won with on the Nova Destiny Facebook group. The owner of the shop posted that list as the winning list. So if you want to check it out.
Okay. Anything else you saw with the other decks that just maybe you didn't expect or performed way better than anticipated?
Again, I expected a lot of melee damage, especially from Vaders and stuff, but it was a whole lot of range damage that was showing up in that tournament, and I had basically just enough health in my deck to be able to get through the sheer volume of range damage, especially out of the Veers and Django deck, and that is a very scary deck, by the way. Just Veers and Django together put out so much damage that you just can't deal with.
Interesting. Okay. So, Jay, you experienced your constructed event today as well. So why don't you give us the rundown on what you saw, what you played, how it went?
Yeah, so today, again, at the same store, Eudaimonia in Berkeley, we had a constructed event, and this time we had 7 participants. I did not compete in the sealed, but I definitely competed today, even at the cost of forcing a buy. But I was really itching to try out a deck that I've been working on in the shadows. And first off, major props to Steven or Chud on the Discord. You know, for all the crud I've given him on his unfortunate opens. He was gracious enough to build me the deck that I wanted to make because I'm still waiting on my Saga set, and I was going to have to bring my starter deck plus Grievous in order to compete today, which wasn't going to get me very far. So he fronted me like all but 3 cards, which I had, and I threw together Count Dooku and Jabba the Hutt, both elite. Funnily enough, a lot of people thought I was like playing some sort of like control Crime Lord deck, but as much as I love yellow and as much as I think Crime Lord's a cool card, honestly, the impetus of this deck was, man, I think Flamethrower's cool. I want to hit people for 4 damage. That was it. That was just like, I want to make a deck that beats people up with flamethrowers, and so I kind of billowed out from there. You know, Jabba and Dooku, what I like about them predominantly is they both have a lot of health. Jabba at 11 and Dooku at 10 with his incredible damage reduction ability that came up a lot and definitely kept me going on his side. And then Jabba hosts 2 focus sides on his dice, and after you activate him, you can reroll any one yellow die. And then Dooku has a solid 1 damage and 2 damage melee, and then he also boasts a focus side. So my deck was flamethrower, both lightsabers. I threw a thermal in there, gaffy sticks, just all sorts of like just strong punchy upgrades. And then my event suite was all of my defensive events, such as like He Doesn't Like You, Electroshock, Feel Your Anger, Use the Force, which I was using more as a defense card than an offense card. And I had, Arm Backup, which was definitely an MVP in the final round. I'll get to that in a second. Underground Connections, basically money and upgrades, and then events to keep me going. Cunning is also in the deck, and some other fun things, Datapad. So my first round was really harrowing. I didn't know what to do. I never see my opponent's deck. I'm kidding. It was a buy. I got the buy. So which kind of worked because I was the TO as well. So I just TO'd and watched other people play. And as my second round opponent made fun of me, he's like, "You just got to scout everybody. You know, you got the buy, and now you know what everyone's doing." And I was like, "That's not true." But I should comment what other people were playing. There were two Vader Raiders on the field. The aforementioned Chud, he was running the Adro style. Meanwhile, another guy was playing the control style. My good friend Sean, he was playing 3 troopers and a Night Sister. He was pretty excited to be rolling that. Apparently, it had been testing fairly well, and he just had a lot of fun with it. So it was cool to see that list. One guy had just Kylo and 2 stormtroopers, but he it was interesting because at first I thought, I was like, did he just slam 2 starters together? But he had bought a fair amount of product, and he actually just liked that combo a lot, so he was running that. And on top of that, we had Elite Finn with Poe, and lastly Elite Kylo, Elite Dooku, and I'm pretty sure that's everybody. So yeah, a lot of variety. Chud was funny and saying, like, you know, he's like, "I know everyone thinks I'm lame for playing Vader Raider, but I worked really hard and traded a whole lot of cards to get these Vaders, so I earned it." I was like, no one's upset, man. And he actually he felt his due punishment in round 1 because his Vader just rolled disrupt over and over and over and over and over. Like the only dice I've ever seen roll worse than that were my TIE fighters, who to this day I think have only 10% of the time rolled damage. I'm not even kidding.
Well, that's good if you play Rick.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
You just eat those shields.
So, moving on to the next round, I played against the Finn Poe player, and I slapped on data pad onto Jabba, rolled that out, made a bunch of money, threw down my Kylo Saber onto Count Dooku, rolled his dice out, and 1 melee, 2 melee, plus 3 melee, round 1. I cut Poe in half. We passed to next round. I threw on a gaffy stick. He put a shield on Finn, and I rolled my dice, and Kylo's saber was out for blood because it rolled the special side, and it was not pretty. I also got both my hunker downs into play, and those lists are predominantly ranged, so I had shields for days. It was he was a good sport about it, but that was a very fast and albeit somewhat lopsided match. But then it all came down to the end where I played against the Control Vader Raider player. I actually have not tested against the deck, I don't believe. Maybe once, but if and when I did, I'm almost certain it wasn't the Control version. So we started. I won the roll and chose to go second, which I'm like kicking myself now because the first thing he did was enrage into Kylo Saber, and I was like, I'm an idiot. I'm an idiot. And then he also dropped, he also made a little money and also dropped on the hunt, which is actually how he blew up the shields later. But yeah, it was just like, yeah, you don't do that against this deck. You don't want shields. Because you should expect to see Kylo Saber pretty quickly. But beyond that, yeah, it was rough goings at first. He got an immobilize out quickly. He got a force choke out quickly. So my dice just kept getting dismantled. Like as quickly as I could focus, he would more or less unfocus them. I jubilantly rolled out my Jabba, who had the flamethrower, and I rolled the 4 damage side, and I had money left over, and I was like, oh man, here it is. Now it's finally gonna happen. All I want is to hit somebody for 4. And he had a 3 damage Vader die showing, and he disarmed my flamethrower. The reason I made the deck. Gone. I was like, no, this isn't fair. Why? And it was looking bleak. I mean, Vader with he only had like at the time like one. I think he had one damage on, and that was the Enrage. I didn't even do that. He had 2 shields. He had a mobilized Kylo Saber and a Force Choke. His Tusken Raider also looking good with like he was a lot of health, and he had On the Hunt on. No supports that I can think of at this time, but just yeah, he was just sitting pretty with all of his stuff. On my side, Dooku had a Jaffe stick. Jabba just lost his flamethrower and was crying in the corner, and I had Underworld Connections. Then it got really interesting, so I drew my next hand and got another Gaffy stick, and so Dooku was dual-wielding Gaffy sticks. He was really focusing Jabba, even though after he disarmed him, I think I threw a data pad on him, but beyond that, like, Jabba wasn't really the threat anymore, but he had already started, so he decided to finish the flabby yellow guy. It worked out in such that he took the battlefield early one round, and I had one resource in play, and connections, and I exhausted connections, got 2 money, and I actually had both armed backups in hand, so I dropped both those guys, slipped Vader 2 damage past his shields, and then we went into the next round, and I made a pretty colossal misplay that I was so terrified was going to decide the game. So I rolled out Dooku. Dooku actually had the datapad, now that I think about it. Anyway, I rolled out Dooku, so we had datapad, stick, and the dice showed Dooku miss, Dooku focus, +2 melee on one stick, miss on another, and special side datapad. And I stared at my dice, and I was like, there's a right way to do this, and there's a wrong way to do this. Don't screw it up. And my brain just like blanked out, and I was just freaking out because, again, like, it seemed like every play I made, he was removing my stuff, and he's sitting on Immobilize and Force Choke, and he was rolling specials for days, and I was just sweating under the pressure. And the mistake I made was I focused Dooku. I used the Dooku focus to turn the other Gaffy stick into the +2, forgetting that I couldn't use the special side on the datapad to flip the blank Dooku to a damage side, because although datapad is practically a focus, it does not allow you to turn the Dooku focus to flip the other Dooku and the datapad to flip the Gaffy into something else. But yeah, so instead of doing 6 damage, I did 3, because instead I just flipped the other Gaffy into the Gaffy special and resolved both Gaffy. But that was not what I was trying to do, and I redundantly turned a die twice. So had I flipped it the way I intended, I would have dealt 6 damage to Vader, which would have left him at 1. We would have ended the round, and then whether he rolled Vader or not, I could have just slipped him an
backup
arm
muscle.
Backup muscle, and took him out. Instead, I had to throw all the backup muscle on him in order to kill him, which did get there. And then it was just Dooku versus the Tusken Raider. Luckily, nothing on Vader had redeploy, so it was just Tusken wielding his On the Hunt. Meanwhile, Dooku ended up with, because I didn't want there to be any chances of like not being able to finish off, I swapped the data pad for the flamethrower, and then I swapped a Gaffy stick on the last round for Kylo Saber. So Gaffy stick, Kylo Saber, and flamethrower to try and kill a 4 health, 1 shield Tusken Raider. So I wasn't taking any chances, and it got a little scary because he had a reversal but not enough money, and he had a backup muscle in hand. So had I rolled poorly or favorably for him, he could have possibly like flipped the like if I rolled high on the flamethrower, he could have reversaled into my face, and that might have been game because Dooku was sitting on 6 damage, but I still had a group full of cards, and I managed to roll it out and pull it out, and I took down the Vader Raider. It was a very good game. Very cool guy. Everyone I met and everyone who came out today was very cool, very gracious. I meant to point out the prizes at our place were just store credit, but for each event I donated one of the Gen Con promos. And even though I won the Constructed today, I let the promo drop down. And so he was pretty happy because he was really... I didn't even know, but tangentially he was really hoping to get a Ray, a Gen Con Ray, and he just won one because I won and I let it trickle. So that was cool for him. He was really happy.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's awesome. All right. So same question to you that went to Rick. What cards in your deck performed admirably that you may or may not have expected?
Well, Flamethrower tried its hardest. So I count, rolling it for the 4 and being worthy of being disarmed for 3 Vader damage to be pretty good. Definitely intimidated my opponent. So I count that as a win. I still haven't burned anyone for 4 yet, but it's coming. I'm definitely bringing this deck back next weekend, and I'll have my cards, and I'll have 2 Kylo Sabers. Yeah, Kylo Saber, I don't know. That card is just I can't say enough great things about it. 4 damage sides, guys. 2 of them deal 3, and 1 of them rerolls the die. Like, what more do you want? Card's just insane. I mean, the defense cards, did their defend things. Like, I love He Doesn't Like You. It's just absolutely perfect, like, spot removal. Electroshock actually was hilariously like outmatched. He kept rolling 3s, and I was like, "Well, you're not quite there, Electroshock." And then Jabba died, and I tried to play it, and then caught myself, and I was like, "I cannot legally play this card. You get to keep your Force Choke special. Wonderful! I'm so glad this is happening." And he let me take that back, which was pretty cool of him. I mean, I hadn't let it hit the discard yet, but still, like, I don't know. I felt bad. I should know by now, but mistakes were made. Trying to think what else. Gaffy Stick, I think that card is incredibly versatile and hits hard, and focusing it for +2 damage is great. Redeploy is amazing. Its special side's cool because if you roll like another modified side, or if you roll Dooku for 1, it's the same thing as like getting the +2 side. If you resolve the special and resolve Dooku's 1 damage side, it's still 3 damage. Like, that's I consider that a win. I think that's really good.
Yeah, Gaffy Stick destroyed me Saturday night when I was testing my Han and Rey deck with a friend of mine, Joe, and I've come to realize that card is much more than a stick.
Well, it's a Gaffy Stick,
right? But
it travels in packs.
I want to try and make the next deck I'm trying to think about definitely has, like, it's something along the lines of, like, Kylo, Tusken Raider, and something, like, maybe Politique, I don't know. But, the main goal is like, using Gaffy Sticks to turn Kylo's dice into, like, heavy-hitting monsters. Like, you just have to roll a damage side and use Gaffy Stick to make it count. And, fix stuff from there, and I don't know. It's an idea I had.
It's not a bad idea. And to clarify, the Gaffy Stick, the special effect says what you can do is if you have a die showing melee, be it modified or base, you can basically turn that into 3 damage using the special effect. So, you can take characters with less than 3 damage and turn them into 3 damage, which is a lot for no resources.
Yeah, the big thing is that it's no resources. You can turn resource damage sides into 3 and not have to pay. Like, it just makes your damage dice way more flexible, which is what you want.
Yeah, I call that the batter up. I picture a Tusken Raider taking the dice and hitting it with a Gaffy Stick in your eye or something like that.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so we've had some of our listeners post on Facebook some questions regarding deck construction tips and things. And I wanted to talk to you guys about that because you've actually gone into constructed events and specifically talking about deck building tips. You know, Rick did monocolor, Jay did not. And we've heard, you know, multiple people say, you know, different things about you should do mono, you shouldn't do mono, you should do multicolor. Multicolor might be not that great. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on your deck construction since you both did very well in your events.
So, I mean, I really went mono to test out some stuff and what the card pool that I have would allow. I think that two-color decks are you have much more access to a more wider range of cards, right? Especially when it comes to dice manipulation against your opponent. But when you can get a very focused deck out of being monocolor, it becomes much more consistent than the two-color deck. Like Jay was saying, that he ran into situations where he just couldn't play Electroshock because Jabba was killed, right? I was never in a situation where I couldn't play any of my cards, if that makes any sense. So what you're looking at there is versus debating on whether or not you want consistency or more options. Y'all agree with that?
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And yeah, again, like I wasn't the only person who was getting tripped up by the fact that, like, as the game goes on, you know, you lose the ability to play some cards, and that becomes fairly relevant. I mean, like I know that Vader Raider guy had some good blue upgrades left in his hand, and all he had was Tusken Raider, and yeah, not happening, man.
Was he running Holocron?
I didn't see it. The other play that was kind of I'll use the L word. I was pretty lucky. Was the battlefield he chose was Rebel Base, which lets you resolve a die with a pay side without paying for it, and I had rolled Dooku's 2 discard side, which you have to pay for.
Oh.
So, and I didn't have any money, but I was like, whatever, I'll resolve it. And he discarded a Mind Probe, which probably would have done really horrible things to me that game. Although, personally, I don't like Mind Probe with Vader because inherently you have to activate Vader, and then they lose a card, and then Mind Probe's less good. It's so weird.
Yeah.
That's fair. I didn't think about that. Yeah, that's right. You have to pitch a card before the Mind Probe can trigger.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of Mind Probe with Vader either, myself, but I mean, it's still 4 damage, right, sometimes, but...
Yeah.
And if you do want to go two-color, going back to Sugi's question, you really, if you can, the cards, if you're playing a lot of cards at spot or, X color only or whatever, you'd want to try and get 2 characters of that color and 1 character of your splash color. And then your splash trying to avoid, if possible, any of the spots or X color only. You know what I mean? So that you're still being able to access those colors, but have a much less chance of it ever coming to bite you. So like in that mono blue deck, I debated on whether swapping the Padawan for a hired gun just to push my damage or my health up to a flat 30. But then the things that I would gain out of using the hired gun are just kind of mitigated on that, right? So if the hired gun ever loses, then I can't electroshock or things like that. Plus, it gets rid of the extra melee sides from the Padawan to help with Rey's modified sides. And then it also increases the overall cost of my damage with the pay sides on the hired gun. So you really got to have if you can figure out a streamlined monocolored deck, it is going to be the most consistent. And as long as your entire deck is going towards the same line, I think it's honestly a lot of times better than a multicolored deck, especially a 3-color deck. I'm not too big on the 3-color decks, but yeah.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Just the confidence that you can like play any card at any time is pretty huge. And there are exceptions, like the deck that I joked about, but is the real deal is like, the blue yellow villain deck that only runs armed backup or
backup muscle.
I keep misnaming that card. Forgive me, guys. But and then just no mercies your face off. It's definitely a deck. But yeah, like I think mono blue on both sides is definitely very formidable. I like mono yellow, and I don't know. There's a lot of neat things that all the colors like offer you and give you like interesting answers to different things, and they all feel like fairly fleshed out, to be honest. I mean, red, you just get all the weapons and vehicles and you just shoot each other to death, and yellow has like really great spot removal and fun tricky stuff, and you can fight over thermals for days. And blue hero, super defensive but uses the defenses to fight, and blue villain just wants to smash you into pieces and screw you over with its targeted removal. It's super good. So a lot of people like think it's not there, but there are some serious advantages, and in some ways it's definitely there. Like I wish I had gotten to see more of the Vader Kylo deck, and I know he was running like a No Mercy strat and stuff. Not Vader Kylo, Dooku Kylo. See how that turned out. But yeah, so my personal advice for deck building is I've like grown and made like 20 decks on TTS and fiddled with them in my free time. Heck, I've practically spent more time making decks than playing the game at this point. But the thing that I've learned is that a lot of my decks, I kept trying to like, I would make like 90% of the deck do a thing, and then like 10% of the deck like do something that wasn't really in line with the main deck idea, but maybe synergize with the character I was playing or something, but didn't feed into the overall strat. Such as I was testing Akbar, I think Commando Raid is a really, really good sneaky card that has its place in a lot of like control mill style decks, but I was definitely not making decks like that. And so because that wasn't really my strategy, that card, even when I played it and it felt good and maybe I got 2 damage out of it, it really wasn't like pushing my deck forward in the ways that I needed it to win games. So I had to cut that. Part of the impetus of my Dooku Jabba deck were things like my outside of like throwing in a flamethrower, I was thinking like instead of running Crime Lord, I'll just use Prize Possession and just use that to sort of like use that as heavy mitigation. And it was becoming this weird like aggro upgrade but heavy control like support stuff, and my deck was going in 2 directions, which as I looked at the cards and was like trying to figure out what I wanted to do, it just wasn't. I'm going to use the phrase like I kept trying to do cute things, and I don't think you should try to do cute things. I think you should sort of figure out like I'm trying to make a ranged damage deck, and obviously use like events and so forth to like there's still a place for like defending yourself and trying to keep you alive. That does further the cause of playing an aggro deck, but don't try not to mix like heavy discard with the damage deck, or go nuts on resource destruction in an aggro deck, things like that. Like I think you want your deck to do one thing really well and do it well within an X number of turns that you can reliably figure out like what's the order of operations and what you can expect to do. I should have like this many upgrades by this turn, so to speak. That's the way I built out my Jabba Dooku deck. And then I've really, really gotten in the habit of upgrading just to like overwriting has become a large part of my strategy, which is one thing that I've been testing myself to do. And I'm much more comfortable just playing a better upgrade over like a 2-cost one than just like, even though maybe I could like draw out my turn and make some money and maybe get the extra one on there for the +1 die, which can be super good. If you're spending too much time trying to make money to get that 3rd upgrade on a die, you might be like losing in the turn economy, which may shore up at the end game when it's between you and them, and you just like one action decides between you. Consider if games come to that, think about the times when you hard casted an upgrade over overwriting. I think in cases of like you know, like Kylo Saber is like worth every cent, but for the most part, like I try to avoid paying 3 for an upgrade unless it's Kylo Saber. I'd rather like pay a 2-coster or play a datapad, get money off datapad, and then overwrite datapad into flamethrower or whatever like I did. So definitely consider the advantage and speed that override provides you if you haven't thought about it before. And again, if you, like I said, if you've come to games where it was just like, oh man, like it was like 2 actions like decided the game, go back and try to remember, like, did you like modify fidget and mess with dice to make money just so you could play an upgrade or drop a TIE fighter or something, when maybe you could have just slapped the lightsaber over your Ray staff and just gone in.
Yeah, I think I overwrote Jedi robes 6 times in one game. We had the battlefield of the Starship Graveyard where I was just pulling it back, and I would overwrite on Rey, of course, on a Jedi robes with another Jedi robes, and then overwrite that Jedi robes with a Force throw. You know, so it's definitely something that needs to be in your bag of tricks.
Sorry, there is one exception. Redeploy is worth considering not overwriting for.
Oh, absolutely.
Do keep in mind, if you have redeploy gear on your guy who's probably going to be the last one standing, then go for it. So again, assess the situation, see where your gear is, try to keep redeploy if it's on someone who's not long for this world. But if they're going to be your last character on the field, then it's fair game. So just stuff to keep in mind.
Another deck building consideration I just wanted to touch on. It's probably a no-brainer right now, but if you're running an aggro deck, you really just want to focus on either ranged or melee. You don't want to have a lot of random your non-focused damage type being out there in your pool. It's okay in yellow because your characters have, like, Django and Django and Finn both have both damage sides, but you really want to push that one damage. And I don't know about you, Jason, but did anybody play block or dodge in that tournament at all that you saw?
I know people had it. I don't think one was played.
Yeah. So like the cost of block and dodge is so easy to play around, and it's probably never going to happen with the way the economy is working and constructed. So you yes, know that it could happen, but the one time that it does happen, you will have done way more damage much faster with sticking to one type of damage. Like, I mean, yes, I'm running Force Misdirection to capitalize on that, but still, it's 2 cards in a deck, right, that may or may not come to bite you, and you can definitely play around block and dodge. So force or push it in a one direction on the melee or the range damage. Don't try to do both.
And a good playing tip when you're playing the game is don't sit on a lot of damage of the same type. If you've rolled out someone and you've got, 3 or 4 damage sitting there, it's not a bad idea to just take the action to resolve it, just because there is a lot of damage mitigation. There's a lot of cards that say, remove all of this type of damage, or remove dice that have damage 2 or above or 2 or less, or, there's all kinds of numbers and math. But if you've got a couple of dice, there's nothing wrong with just plinking away slowly. I mean, unless you're just going to lose the game, roll some dice, resolve some dice, roll some more dice, resolve those. That way you're not vulnerable to removal, meaning, you've wasted all those actions because your opponent just plays a card and now you've lost all that damage you could have done.
I was sitting on 4 dice in my pool, 2 of which showed like 1 melee damage, and one of them was a 3 for 1 resource, and then the 4th dice was a resource, and my opponent was showing 2 resources, and I felt like he was waiting for me to gain the resource before doing something like a block or something like that. So I ended up just resolving the 2 single melee damages, giving him a turn, and then using my resource to do the 3 damage. And it didn't change anything at all. It just made it to where, I had a feeling it may have just been, something that wasn't true. I never saw the block, so that's sort of what you were saying there, Sugi.
Yeah, like trust your instincts, but don't like my best advice for any player listening is, if you've got, 4 troopers, for example, don't spend 4 actions rolling all the troopers and then you have all of this, range damage potentially. And then someone goes, cool, all right, here's a card that just removes all of your damage, because now you're out of a turn, you lost all that damage, when you could, maybe roll 2 troopers and then resolve the damage. So that way your opponent can't just, neuter your turn and really throw you backwards in not only turn economy, but damage economy.
Yeah, and to add to that as well, like the scenario that ended up in my last game, which again, shout outs to, I don't know if this guy wants to be named, but the Control Vader player. I rolled poorly at the beginning of the game, and he had 2 very rough rolls at the end that kind of hurt him a lot. His Vader and Force Choke all rolled Disrupt, which gave me the window I needed to hit him with both muscles and take him out. But a turn that mattered a lot was he rolled a couple of his dice. He rolled his Vader, and he had 1 miss, and then both Vader dice were on the money side. And then he decided to roll Tusken Raider, which also rolled a miss, and so that gave me the ability to play Feel Your Anger and remove both of his Vader dice so that he didn't re-roll them into 3 damage, and I feel like that was probably, without knowing, how the rest of the game was going to go, I felt like that was one of the more impactful plays I made in the entire game, was just removing this potential. Because he definitely force-struck me later, which could have been then, and would have possibly caused me more problems.
All right, great. Well, that's pretty much the whole show. Do you guys have anything else you want to plug before we wrap this up?
Thanks, Yudo, for allowing me to TO and hosting these awesome events, and we're going to have a ton of events going forward. They're doing stuff to celebrate Road One, and I'm looking forward to trying out this deck more. I'll probably put up what I won with, and then either in that or separately I will release my more tuned version of if you have everything, and explain some of the details there. But massive thanks to Stephen Chud for lending me the deck. I mean, honestly, I wouldn't have won without him, so even though he's a villain player, he's the hero of the day.
Yeah, and I know that you're probably having trouble finding product right now, but it is coming. I don't think we will have a repeat of Dice Masters where nobody could get starters for 6 months before they finally got more out into the world. So I know that it is hard to find right now, but there are rumors that the 15th, another shipment, and even before that, there might be more hitting the streets. So keep your eyes out. Look at your local Facebook groups. Most of the shops are in those, posting when they receive stock, and your fellow players will post on there after they've gotten theirs that this store has product left over. So just keep a lookout on it, and it will come, and it is a good sign that so many people are hyped for this game.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us on this week's show. We have a couple of things we want to cover before we wrap up. So first of all, in our Discord chat, we are doing an exclusive contest for Discord users only. We are going to be giving away a custom Knights of Ren sticker, and all you have to do is answer some Star Wars trivia. And as we progress through, we're going to be adding more prizes and making the trivia a lot more difficult. So you don't want to miss out. Join the Discord channel. It's totally free, and we're going to be pulling a name out of a hat next week to see who gets the sticker. And also, another big event we want to announce is that swdestiny.com is doing a tabletop simulator league, and the winner gets half a booster box, and then other participants can get all kinds of booster packs, stickers, and all kinds of fun neat things. So if you want to join, we'll post the link in the show notes, and you can meet new friends, get some games under your belt, and win free product. There's no price point to entry. We're also going to be streaming some of the games live on Twitch, doing some commentary, doing all kinds of community events just to get people, into the game, get their feet wet, and like I said, you can win free stuff, and so it's going to be totally great. swdestiny.com is where you want to check that out. So, thank you everyone for listening once again. We are the Knights of Ren. If you want to find us, you can look us up on Facebook at Knights of Ren Podcast. We are on Twitter at KOR Podcast. We'll post our link to Discord here in the show notes. We have a new Instagram. We have a YouTube page. We also have a Twitch channel, and we have tons of ideas, and we're going to start doing streams with our community members so that we can talk about cards, deck ideas, strategies, and just hang out and have a lot of good times. So everyone, thank you so much for joining us. Good luck with getting your packs, your decks together. We are so excited that Destiny is finally available for everyone to enjoy. So everyone have a great week, and may the Force be with you.